All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Mike and George show. Took a little bit of a break there. Me and George both had busy schedules. We had the Super Bowl wrap up. We had that dull period in February, George, that we were talking about. It's like, what's there really to go over? I mean, I know we have NFL free agencies like in the coming weeks. We have March Madness in the coming weeks, but there was that little bit of dead period where it's like, Super Bowl just wrapped up, and college hoops hasn't quite, been riveted up yet. We had a kind of an interesting NBA trade deadline. Nothing too crazy to pressing information there. But how have you been, George, since we last spoke?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. Like you said, just a little post Super Bowl, not a hangover, but just kind of a little dead period.
Yeah.
As we get ramped up. Golf season really starts getting started here. Basketball gets into the playoffs. Obviously, we had the Olympics just last week, and that was
Incredible.
very exciting.
Yeah.
So not a ton for us to comment on, but we're back now, so it's good to be back. A little bit of NFL before we get going on some hoops, but yeah, I know it's good to be back. I'll say that.
Yeah, 100%. On the Olympics part, the only thing that I was like, the men's Olympic final and the women's Olympic final were both USA, Canada, and that was really interesting. Other than that, though, I was like, it's just one of the things you have on in the background. It's like, okay, yeah. It was cool. But shout out to Jacob Bridgman, by the way. When you mentioned golf, Clemson grad, he was able to win the Genesis Invitational, I believe it was. I think it was either this past Sunday or the Sunday before.
I think it was this past Sunday.
This past Sunday, yeah. So shout out to Jacob Bridgman, Clemson grad. Let's get into some NFL stuff, George, because like you said, there was that little bit of a dull period, but we still had some coaching cycles happening. The Raiders were the last team to kind of fill their vacancy. Obviously, you had to wait for Clint Kubiak to finish with the Seattle Seahawks, obviously, as they won the Super Bowl. Congratulations to Seattle, by the way.
Yeah.
Phenomenal team all year long. To me, it felt like, George, Seattle and LA, we talked about this a few times. That was the Super Bowl. That third meeting, the rubber match, that was really the game.
I thought the Bills were going to find their way into that game. Obviously we talked about it before the playoffs, but all the quarterbacks that got hurt, and even then, obviously we saw Bo Nix go down before the AFC Championship, all the quarterback injuries, and they couldn't get done. But credit to the Patriots for having an awesome season. Obviously came up just a little short, but the Sam Darnold story, that is so cool.
It's incredible. It's just absolutely incredible.
It feels like he's been in the league for 10 years because he was so young when he got drafted. Yeah. And it's like, dude, that guy's only, what is he, like 26, 27?
He's still young.
Maybe? Yeah, he's still very young. He's on an absolute discount for the couple of seasons he's put together. So yeah, huge congrats to the Seahawks. John Schneider, the whole organization over there, very impressive. So
he put together a heck of a roster. I was gonna say Sam Darnold. It feels like he's been in the league forever because he's been on 5 different teams, George. That's probably why. Yeah. Jets, Panthers, 49ers, Vikings, and now Seattle. Yep. And he wins Super Bowl in the 49ers stadium. It was a really cool story for Sam Darnold. Shout out to the Patriots, obviously, for getting that. I know the jokes of the schedule, they didn't face anybody. And it was weird. Like, we'll be looking back at this 10 years from now. It's like, the Patriots made the Super Bowl. They beat Jarrett Stidham and Justin Herbert and CJ Stroud, who kind of, had the worst game of his life against New England and that. But you got to give credit to New England. They overachieved. I mean, they whatever the expectations were for New England, they absolutely exceeded them and then some. So you can't crap on them for getting to the Super Bowl. That was obviously a feat in itself. But I agree with you. It felt like that was Buffalo's path to lose. I mean, with all the quarterback injuries in the conference alone, and then like you said, Bo Nix going down, felt like I thought we were going to see Buffalo against the Rams or Seattle. Would it have made a better game? I don't know, because I still have questions about that Buffalo roster overall. I think Seattle's roster was just so much better than New England's that I don't think it really mattered which quarterback per se came out of the AFC. It was going to be a tough game for any of those guys. Yeah. Drake May's young. He ran into an awesome defense with speed that he hasn't seen before. Even in the AFC side, they don't have those. Those defenses are good. Denver, Houston, don't get me wrong, they're good defenses. The speed of Seattle, though, is a huge difference. So I think that obviously you got to give credit to Seattle there.
No, yeah, and just one small thing on that Bills side of stuff, and you saw Sean McDermott get fired. Obviously, big question mark. He's a great coach. We talked a little bit, I think, before the season started about that 7-year rule, and you saw with Harbaugh and McDermott now, after 7 years together with their quarterback, no Super Bowl, they both let him go. They both look a different way. And it's just with that Bills team, it's like you said, they felt like they were honestly more than a piece away. Like it was like maybe a piece, 2 pieces. The defense couldn't stop the run all year. And then you got I think it was McDermott talking about in the postseason, a guy like Jacoby Myers, who was at the deadline. I think he was like a 3rd or 4th round pick trade. Yeah. And it's like, why can't you get a guy like that? So not important now, season's over, but just a little something to touch on before we kind of get going here on the head coaching stuff. But
it's a great segue to the head coaching. You mentioned it. The Bills, I thought the roster, they were a few pieces away. So I really didn't understand the McDermott firing to me, because I was like, look at the roster. I mean, you didn't go out and trade for Jacoby Myers.
Yeah. It's not his fault, I don't think.
No, I mean, what is if this is the big indictment was, okay, Josh Allen turned the ball over 4 times. This is the last thing on Buffalo, because obviously it's like they lose in the division round again. We get it, but this to me was more of an issue of roster construction. They had no sacks on Bo Nix the entire game. I think that's just inexcusable. I'm sorry with the way if you are a championship roster, you have to be able to get to the quarterback, and they didn't get to the quarterback really in either round. I mean, the Jacksonville game, Trevor Lawrence was playing well when he had time, and he had time most of the day. He made a couple errors, but he wasn't like he was being harassed all day long. And then Denver, again, they couldn't get to the quarterback. So I think Buffalo had an issue of they didn't have any trustworthy receivers that Josh Allen was throwing to. And then the pass rush, if you don't have a pass rush in January, you just can't close out games if you can't get to the quarterback. And they just had no closer. I mean, it looked, no offense to Joey Bosa, he looked a little old. He looked like he was running quicksand a little bit.
Yeah, look, I love Joey Bosa, but that can't be your first option to rush.
Not your go-to. No,
not at this point.
No, it looked like a 40% Ed Oliver was their best pass rusher, and it's just like no one was healthy at the same time. They didn't have all the. It's another excuse here for Buffalo. I get it, but to your point, segueing into the head coaching vacancies, because they were a late add to the vacancies. They lose in the divisional round, and they fire their head coach. So that's another one. They didn't have really a chance to interview all the candidates because at this point, some of the candidates were already off the board. I mean, Harbaugh was a giant before. Buffalo
Harbaugh was first, then Stefanski, something like that.
Harbaugh, Stefanski. I know Jeff Hafley. We hired Jeff Hafley pretty quick. I think it was right after Green Bay lost.
Yeah, whenever Green Bay was
after. Right. So yeah, it was of that divisional round week. I think it was right after divisional round weekend because I know Dolphins fans were like, "Should we go after McDermott?" And then like the day after the Bills fired him, we hired Hafley. So it's like it's a quick turnaround. It was weird because he was fired so late in the year. Mid-January, you fire him. So of these, I believe there's 9 vacancies here, George.
Yeah,
we can run through them here. I mean. Let's just grade a few of these. So obviously you had the Giants with John Harbaugh. You had the Dolphins, Jeff Hafley. Titans get Robert Saleh, who did a phenomenal job with San Francisco's defense this year. Cardinals get Mike LaFleur. Falcons, Kevin Stefanski. Raiders, Clint Kubiak. Browns, Todd Monken. Steelers get Mike McCarthy. Ravens get Jesse Minter. And the Buffalo Bills stay in-house and get Joe Brady. So of those 9, where do you think we should start?
Well, we can do our favorite if you want to do our favorite hire.
Like
For me, and there's a lot of good ones out there. I love Minter. I love Saleh. I think my favorite hire is Kevin Stefanski.
Really?
I think Kevin Stefanski, I think that's a really good hire by the Falcons. I think that he's a guy who's, and I don't mean to just trash on Pittsburgh, right? Not Pittsburgh, Cleveland. It's kind of been a tough place for several years, but it felt like he was kind of the scapegoat there. They've scapegoated a couple guys, but now they're going to scapegoat Stefanski, who 2-time coach of the year. He's led the Browns to a playoff win. And I think the Falcons really that's a talented team in a pretty soft division. And so in terms of like opportunity for the next 2-3 seasons, I think Stefanski's got a really good chance to not just make the playoffs, but maybe win a game or two. So that's who I would go as maybe my favorite. Obviously, maybe I don't know favorite, but definitely I think like an A- at the worst. Like that's a good hire in my eyes.
Oh no, we agree. I was with you. It wasn't my favorite, but it was one of my top 3 for sure. Like Stefanski, I thought this was a home run for Atlanta. I mean, you get like you said, you mentioned the division being weak. Stefanski's taken Browns rosters that were talented, don't get me wrong, but in a much more stacked division. I know the AFC North was down this year, but when Stefanski won his playoff game, 3 AFC North teams were in the playoffs that year. That was Cleveland was in it, obviously. Baltimore was the number 1 seed that year, I think, and then Pittsburgh was in it as well. Or maybe that was swapped. But 3 teams were in the playoffs that year, and he won a playoff game against Pittsburgh in that COVID year. So on the road. So it's like, that means something. And then he got him back to the playoffs with Joe Flacco 2 years later, George. I mean, that's pretty impressive. Yeah. And now the only thing that would caution me on Atlanta is I have no idea who their quarterback's going to be.
That is the point.
Penix. The issue with Penix is I liked Penix out of college. Don't get me wrong, but his inability to stay on the field, and that's been an issue in the NFL too. Like he's missed so many games, and even when he's played, he hasn't been like this eye-popping, flashing prospect like a Jaden Daniels has, for example, like a Drake May or Caleb Burbow. So that's the issue there, and it looks like they're going to cut Kirk Cousins, and he gave them some nice starts last year to end on a 4-game winning streak. But I just don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. I think Stefanski, with the roster they have and the talent they do have on their team, because you mentioned it is a talented Atlanta roster, but who's going to be the quarterback? I think if Stefanski can figure that out, it's a very, very, very winnable division. Like I would say here, and we have no inside information here, but if the Falcons were to trade for, say, a Mac Jones who signed a 2-year deal instead of a 1-year deal, like had Mac Jones been in free agency this year, I think he'd be getting some money because he played as well as Malik Willis did in relief for Brock Purdy. And Malik Willis might be going for $30 million. So Mac Jones signing that 2-year, $10 million deal with San Francisco last year, he's going to have to trade for Mac Jones because he's not a free agent. But if Atlanta was to say trade for a Mac Jones at quarterback, I think him with Stefanski could win that division. That division is wide open. We just saw Bryce Young win it with 8 wins this year. I think a Stefanski Mac Jones combination is right there with a Canales, Bryce Young, a Baker and Todd Bowles and Shuck and Kellen Moore. It's a wide open division. Anyone can win it, really.
I mean, I think Atlanta, the Falcons had 8 wins last year too. They were same record. They just lost the tiebreaker. But yeah, I think that, like you said, the quarterback room needs to be cleaned up. Bringing another quarterback in, I am interested to see what they're going to do there. I don't know if there's going to be a restructuring with Kirk Cousins. Obviously, they're paying him a ton. Michael Penix, that was the previous head coach that was kind of promising him stuff. So yeah, it's really kind of a fresh slate on offense. That defense was pretty solid last year. A lot of young pieces that look intriguing. Obviously, I think there was an arrest. I know.
James Pierce. Yeah,
James Pierce, that is unfortunate. I hope that. I don't really know the details, so I'm not going to comment. But yeah, I mean,
it's a tough start to Stefanski's tenure when your best defensive player from last year. That was tough.
I like the hire. I think that he's got some work to do, but in terms of opportunity for him, if they give him some space to breathe, give him a couple of years to bring some guys in the draft, free agency, I think that's going to be honestly a 10+ win team pretty consistently in my eyes. So
I'm with you. I think Stefanski, again, he's got to find the quarterback right there, but and Matt Ryan is there too now in Atlanta, calling the shots up there in the front office. So I think Atlanta's doing
football operations now. I think
exactly. I think Atlanta's doing the right things. They're in a new regime now, but I think I like where they're at. My favorite was, and I'm going to go with the obvious here. I'm going to go with John Harbaugh. I think that this is one of those things where, and we see it every year, where it's like, okay, a known, proven good head coach is on the market, and a team like the Giants scoops him. Like last year was Vrabel. It's like, okay, we knew Vrabel was good. He got Tennessee as far as he could, which was the AFC Championship game, and then they had a couple wild card exits, divisional round exits. It's like, okay, they've kind of run their course with that team, and Tennessee decided to move on. And Vrabel took a year off and then came back. Not a year off from coaching, but it was like an assistant role with Cleveland. And then he comes back in New England. It's a perfect situation. Year 2 quarterback. They have a lot of cap space, a lot of money. And they basically improved the roster in 1 year. Now they're in the Super Bowl. With the Giants, they have some of the most cap space in the NFL. They have a lot of money to spend. They have another year 2 quarterback in Jackson Dart, who showed some flashes this year, similar to Drake May last year. Showed some flashes. I was not as high on Jackson Dart out of college as I was with Drake May. I don't think you were either, but. Still, they're promising young quarterbacks on rookie cheap deals. So it's like this is your time, this is your window to spend. And I think John Harbaugh is absolutely going to raise the floor. So the Giants' floor has been, they've been picking the top 5. It feels like every year, and they're picking the top 5 again this year. But it feels like John Harbaugh, at the very least, he's a no nonsense guy. He's all seriousness. Like this is going to be a serious franchise now moving forward. Like I know Joe Shane's still there, but this is kind of like this is Harbaugh's running the team. So Harbaugh's got the reins to do whatever he wants. I think he's going to be able to at least make the Giants competitive and maybe double their wins. I think they won 3-4 games this year. Yeah, I think they win 7 and 8. I think they win 7 and 8. I think they could absolutely double their wins.
Yeah, I think that I agree with you. I think it's in terms of the off-field stuff, this is a huge upgrade for the Giants. Harbaugh, he's had a great culture in Baltimore for years, and you have to credit him with that because he's the main guy there. And like you said, I think that in terms of raising floor, that the Giants are going to be significantly better. It's not great for the rest of the NFC East, but the Giants will definitely be better. The only reason I wouldn't lead with Harbaugh is because I think that the NFC East is still so steep. Like there's 4 quarterbacks in there that are very, very talented. 2 of them are like, you can really make clear arguments for elite with Dak and Jalen Hurts. Obviously Jaden.
You don't think Jaden really?
I'm going to argue it, but I understand where people come from saying he needs to stay on the field. But I think that at the end of the day, that the Giants are going to be in a much better place. That's where I'm getting at here. I'm excited to see what the culture looks like. Giants have kind of been floating around for a while. Obviously the Daniel Jones pick kind of felt like they set him back for about 4 seasons there. Unfortunately, when you tie yourself to a quarterback. But yeah, I'm really intrigued to see kind of what Jackson Dart looks like with John Harbaugh here, what John Harbaugh kind of brings to that environment, because the Giants have been really since 2015 pretty disappointing. Since I think that was like Odell's first year or maybe his second year, they've been pretty disappointing. So I'm interested to see where it looks like. Obviously, you're getting Malik Neighbors back, you're getting Scadaboo back, you're getting Dart healthy. So there's a ton of guys up there that are going to perform. And the defense was already pretty solid. So, I'd 100% agree. I think the Giants are going to take a big step this year. Yeah,
and again, they'll have money to spend, too. So they'll be able to spend on this roster and improve it. I think with the Giants, though, and my only caution with them is I don't love Jackson Dart's play style. I think I'd like to see him slide a little more and, preserve that. And
you learn that as you play, right?
Exactly. You learn as you play. But it was almost like you're taking a lot of hits. It's like, get out of bounds or get down because
he was taking some sideline hits for sure.
Exactly. The most important thing is availability. And the other guys in the division, Dak, and Jalen Hurts, when they're on the field, they're really good. And Jaden Daniels, same thing. When he's on the field, he's really good. Jalen Hurts, all those guys. So it's like if you get on the field, that's paramount because the quarterbacks in your division are good, like you mentioned already. But that is the biggest thing for me because if he's good, if Jackson Dart is the answer, the guy at quarterback, I think the Giants are now looked at as like okay, now you have the coach and the quarterback tandem together. That's really scary. But moving on, what were some other ones? I personally like Robert Saleh.
I love Saleh. Yeah, I love Kubiak. I love Saleh.
Yeah, Kubiak and Saleh. The thing I would say with Saleh is. Again, I don't know how you can do much better than he did with the Jets. I know he got that defense playing like top 10 levels football. They won 7-8 games with like Mike White and Zach Wilson at quarterback. I think at this point, and by the way, I love the OC hire of Brian Daboll in Tennessee. So he's already building a staff of like proven head coaches before. Brian Daboll won a coach of the year with the Giants. He's now on Robert Saleh's staff. I was really high on Cam Ward out of college, more so than I was Jackson Dart. And I feel like Robert Saleh is getting the best of the rookie quarterbacks, at least heading into last year of what we thought. And Cam Ward it was a rocky season, but he had some flashes. And I think
you definitely saw some impressive stuff out of Cam Ward. I think that they're still offensively got some work to do on the outside, maybe some receivers to draft. But yeah, in terms of pairing up two really great football minds, Robert Saleh and Brian Dable, that's going to be awesome. I think kind of similar to the Giants, you feel pretty good about that floor being raised. Obviously, the AFC, it's the AFC South. It's kind of been inconsistent. Obviously the Colts had that big year. Jags are coming on strong now, and the Texans are kind of always good over the last couple of years. So it's not going to be an easy division, but I think that they're putting together a really good staff over there. And I think Saleh talked about he's going to be calling plays now, which he wasn't doing, I believe, in New York. And
correct.
I think that's going to make a difference for him. He's obviously showed he's a great defensive coordinator. He's done it several times in San Francisco for multiple playoff runs. So I think that the Titans are going to be a lot better off with Saleh here. And yeah, like you said, Cam Ward's super intriguing. He wasn't exactly lit like the world on fire. Great his first year, but I mean, those are the years you got to kind of work through. He didn't have the pieces around him really. The division was tough, kind of unexpectedly. So yeah, I'm super excited for the Titans. I think that I like Saleh a lot here.
Yeah, my one thing with Saleh was because I think we all knew he'd get another coaching spot. I mean, he was just too good to not be getting another look at head coach. My only thing with Saleh was who's going to be the offensive coordinator, because that was really the one thing with the Jets. He was kind of forced into hiring Nathaniel Hackett as his OC because Aaron Rodgers made him. They never really had a great OC there in New York, and that's why their offenses weren't ever great. And again, they didn't have good quarterback play either in New York. So it was like, what do you want Robert Saleh to do? He fixed his side of the ball.
I mean, they fired him. What were they, 1-2? I think when they fired him, they were 3 games into the season. So
yeah, it was a very quick firing.
I still think he should be the coach of the Jets. To be completely honest, he probably should have never lost the job. So.
Right. I mean, that was kind of the Aaron show there in New York. But I thought with Robert Saleh, the one thing was, okay, can he bring over a proven good offensive coordinator? Brian Dable is that. Yep. He was great in Buffalo as an offensive coordinator. He got Daniel Jones a second contract, which is almost like his own worst enemy. It's like Brian Dable was too good. He got Daniel Jones paid, and then he attached himself to him, and it was like, oh, that's a bummer. But that's big for Robert. That's a big get for Robert Saleh's staff. I was like, okay, if he'll get an unproven OC, I don't know how it's going to go with Tennessee. But he gets Brian Dable, who's probably one of the top OCs on the market. That was big for him, I think. So for Robert Saleh, I thought that was another A hire by Tennessee, who I think they're looking up too. And another guy I wanted to mention, I want to get your thoughts on him because you mentioned it briefly. Jesse Minter, I thought, was the best of the not proven head coaches. So we talked about Stefanski, we talked about Harbaugh, we talked about Robert Saleh. Those guys are all head coaches before, so we have some track record on them already. Of these unproven guys like Todd Monken and Kubiak and Mike LaFleur and Jeff Hafley and Jesse Minter and Joe Brady. Jesse Minter, to me, it's the closest thing. It's like Mike McDonald light, of whenever he was the Ravens defensive coordinator when they had a historic defense in 2023. And you see what he's done with Seattle. Kind of comes from the same vein of that Michigan background, Harbaugh background. He comes to the Chargers with Jim Harbaugh and completely revamps what was a bottom 5 defense that last year with Brendan Staley, and then they were a top 5 defense in like a 2-year turnaround. So it's like you saw what Minter and Harbaugh were able to do in the first 2 years in LA. And I think the Ravens are like, we can't ignore that. Like it's almost like we're getting a younger, more innovative, more creative version of what we already have. We already have the culture. We don't need a culture guy because Harbaugh and we're the Baltimore Ravens. We don't need to go find a culture guy like maybe the Jets or the Browns need to go do. We already have that. We need to find a Mike McDonald. We should never we should never let him left the building. And I thought they found the closest guy to him in Jesse Minter of all the defensive guys on the because there was a lot of DCs available, George. I mean, Brian Flores did not get a job, but he was another guy. A lot of the hot shot defensive coordinators.
I thought Flores was going to get with all the openings.
I did too. I was really surprised about that. But what do you think about Jesse Minter?
I was going to say, you hit the nail on the head there. I think that the Ravens, especially after what we kind of saw, Mike McDonald won the Super Bowl, they definitely feel a little bit of, I guess, the seller's remorse. Not even seller's remorse, but letting Mike McDonald walk out of your building and with the standard that he brought to the defense every day and, just to see what he was able to do as a head coach. And I'm not here to say Harbaugh was on the hot seat, but it kind of felt like for a few years there, with the playoff kind of falling down, Lamar's playing maybe the best football of anyone not named Patrick Mahomes in the league over the last 5 seasons or so. And they couldn't get it done in the playoffs, never made the Super Bowl. Obviously, that's a high standard. But like you said, the Ravens, they live up to their own standard. I think a little bit of maybe seller's remorse with seeing McDonald walk out the window and be so successful that they're like, hey, we're going to go get a guy who actually did leave us 2 years ago, bring him back. Great defensive mind, obviously. And so, I think Jesse Minter was a great hire. I mean, I don't have a ton to say about him because like you said, he's never been a head coach before.
Right.
But in terms of first-time head coaches, him and Kubiak, I think, are the top 2. Obviously, after seeing Kubiak torch the Rams in the NFC Championship and was great in the Super Bowl. It's hard to look away from anyone else and be like, wow, that guy was unbelievable. But yeah, I think that Minter's going to be great. Obviously, the Ravens they've been so inconsistent because it's some years it's the defense, some years it's the offense, some years they're not healthy enough. They obviously, so I think that the culture, like you said, is straight and totally fine, but they need to kind of get out of their own way a little bit on the field. Like it feels like, and I think Minter's going to be a guy that helps them clean that up a little bit. So yeah, I'm intrigued about that. Obviously, I like it more than their kind of AFC North counterparts, the decisions they made with the Browns and the Steelers going Todd Monken and Mike McCarthy.
That's a fantastic segue. I was just going to say. I mean,
but like you said, yeah, credit to the Ravens, credit to Minter.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so segueing into things that we didn't like, maybe hires we didn't like, we didn't love. I gotta start here with the Steelers. I like Mike McCarthy. Let me just preface that.
Yeah.
I think he's a solid
guy. He's a Pittsburgh guy.
I mean, the proof is in the pudding. This is not an anti Mike McCarthy
Super Bowl winner
here. 100%. I'm shocked the Steelers went this route. It feels like to me, the Steelers, we know they don't fire head coaches. That's number one. And they didn't fire Mike Tomlin this time either. This was a mutual parting of ways where he's like, I'm stepping away, I'm stepping down. But to me, if you look at the Steelers' history in the past, they go after young, unproven defensive guys. Chuck Noll they hired at 37. Exactly. Chuck Noll they hired at 37 years old. Bill Cowher and Mike Tomlin they both hired at 34 years old. All three of those guys have defense in their background. To me, and by the way, they're batting 1,000. All three of those guys are Super Bowl champions and probably going to be in the Hall of Fame one day. For Mike Tomlin, that is. So when you're batting 1,000 on finding a head coach, I feel like, what if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like stick with that mantra. And I was like, okay, there's a few young.
I mean, Jesse Minter makes a lot of sense.
Jesse Minter, Chris Shula, and I'm saying, what?
Saleh is pretty young. Like,
yeah, Brian Flores is only 43 years old. I mean, these are younger guys, and they don't have to hire another 34-year-old like they did the previous two times. But there's young guys who you can grow with in Pittsburgh. Like we know they want to have 15 years of runway with these guys. So I figured, okay, they're going to go unproven. At the very least, it doesn't have to even be defensive mind. Like they could actually they can go young offensive mind. They can go kind of opposite. They didn't do either of them. They went old offensive mind with Mike McCarthy. But to me, this is just Mike Tomlin, a different version. This is all this is this is a guy who won a Super Bowl ages ago, back in 2010. Mike Tomlin won his Super Bowl in 2008. So both of them are Super Bowl champions, but they're so far in the past, it's like you have to like squint to see it. They both since then have not had much playoff success. They don't have losing seasons by and large.
I mean, the Steelers Mike Tomlin never had 2017 or 16 won a playoff game.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin has not won a playoff game since 2016. It's been 10 years now. And Mike McCarthy, similarly, I think he only won one playoff game in Dallas, if I'm not mistaken. So it's like, it was just like one of those things where, okay, what are we doing here? We're kind of running the same exact hamster wheel thing again. It's like in Pittsburgh, to me, I thought this was a perfect opportunity for them to kind of reset things. It's like, okay, we're moving past the Tomlin era into a completely new regime, completely new era. And hiring Mike McCarthy just feels like you're doing the same thing. It's just Mike Tomlin, but it's a different version of Mike Tomlin.
It's very safe.
It's a very safe hire. It's Mike Tomlin, but at least you're fixing the offense side. Like the one thing I say Mike McCarthy is his offenses are always good. So Pittsburgh's offense has been atrocious for 6 straight years now. Like they have not had that side of the ball figured out. So that's like the one saving grace here. I'm like, okay, you went offense. That's cool. But Mike McCarthy does not signal anything besides we're going to stay above water as a franchise. It's like we like where we're at. We're content with 9-8, 10-7, losing in the wild card round. We are totally good with that because that's what Mike Tomlin was doing for them, and it's probably what Mike McCarthy's going to do for them too. Like they're not actually he's not going to elevate a roster. I mean, I've never think it's just one of those things where they are who they are, and I figure this is the perfect opportunity to kind of tear things down and go with a young guy that you can kind of have here for the next 10 to 15 years.
I agree.
Get you another Super Bowl.
I think part of that is they are not sold on quarterback. I think that this is kind of a move where they really want Aaron Rodgers back because in this draft, there's really kind of one quarterback and he's going first overall. Obviously, Ty Simpson's pretty talented, but it's going to be hard to kind of marry your franchise to Ty Simpson. So I think that part of it is maybe I don't want to call him a bridge coach because he's a super talented coach, but to me, it feels like this is not a guy who you plan on giving maybe a second extension to, right? Yeah. You look at the Rams just extended McVay. Obviously, he's, I'd say, the best coach in football, all things considered. He started, it's been 9 years now. He's going into his 10th year, and I think he's on like his third contract. And to me, it's like kind of in the current form of the NFL, that's what you're hoping for. You want your McVay, and obviously they don't have the quarterback. They have Stafford still, who's going to be gone probably in the next 2-3 years. Yeah. But, like you want a coach that is so like consistent, who's guaranteed kind of who you can build forward to for, it's almost like you're recruiting a kid out of high school where you're like, hey, I want you to come for like the next 4 years and like get better and, you know, improve as a coach, improve our entire organization. And I think McCarthy is fine. Like you said, he's kind of just the Tomlin offensive side of the ball version. And it kind of just feels like they're like, hey, we want Rodgers back for another year because we don't love the quarterbacks in this draft. Our defense, we kind of like they sold. Remember they traded Jalen Ramsey away last year.
Yeah. Traded for Jalen Ramsey. Yeah,
traded for Jalen Ramsey last year. So they're kind of all over the place. And again, in that really tough division, of course. So I don't hate it because I know Mike McCarthy's a Super Bowl winner and he's going to get the guys to play hard for him. He's going to scheme well. He's going to have good design. But if you have Aaron Rodgers, you almost don't need the old offensive head coach because Aaron Rodgers is basically the old offensive head coach. You know, like you take the shot on a young guy, take the shot on a Jesse Minter, and maybe Jesse Minter didn't want to go to Pittsburgh. Obviously, we don't know the behind the scenes stuff. But yeah, to me, it just feels a little bit safe. It feels a little bit like we're content with our 10-win playoff berth, and you know, it is what it is. And if I'm wrong, all credit to them. You know, maybe they'll go get it done. But yeah, just to me, I wasn't super obsessed with it.
I would be shocked if Mike McCarthy brings home the 7th Super Bowl Lombardi to Pittsburgh. I would be really, really surprised. I'm rooting for him, but I'm not convinced that it's going to happen. Like I feel like if you're not sold on this quarterback draft class, next year's is supposed to be really good. So next year would have been the year to tear it down and kind of look at the next year's quarterback draft class. Like you mentioned Jalen Ramsey, they're spending so much money, George, on this defense. They could have started this new regime as like, okay, we're going to start selling off these pieces while they're still valuable. Like, I'm not saying trade TJ Watt, but at least maybe field some calls. He had a bit of a down year to his standards. Cam Hayward's still awesome, but he is 37 years old. So maybe, you know, Jalen Ramsey at this point, like how much more is he going to play at an elite level? Probably not that much longer. So like if you maybe sell off some of these parts and get younger and more importantly, get less expensive because you're so expensive you were the highest paid defense in the NFL last year. And it didn't result in any playoff wins. I mean, it resulted in
the defense wasn't all that special. Obviously, TJ Watt wasn't healthy all year. But yeah, I didn't think, you know, the Steelers struck incredible amounts of fear into anyone they played defensively.
No,
I'd argue that the better side of the ball might have been the offense with the way Aaron Rodgers kind of played down the stretch. You know?
Down the stretch, absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with you there.
Yeah, I mean, the playoff game was a stinker. But again, no one thought Pittsburgh's offense had any chance against Houston's defense. That was a horrible matchup. So it was like, they're not going to score many points against Houston. No one was scoring many points against Houston. But nonetheless, like down the stretch defensively, they weren't really getting stops. Detroit went up on the field on them. Baltimore in that fourth quarter went up on the field on them. You know, it was not like their defense was lighting up. Like, usually Pittsburgh's defense, like, oh my gosh. But if you're going to spend that much on defense, you're going to have to really, you know, outperform drastically. And they really just didn't. It's still a good defensive unit. Don't get me wrong. And they have names all over the defense. But it's one of those things where they're just like kind of still doing the same thing. But segueing to the Browns, it's really tough because the Browns, nobody wanted this job. I don't know if you saw the point, but like everyone was just like releasing themselves from the candidacy. They're like, you know what, I'm not going to take this job.
I think that was like Brian Flores and
Mike McDaniel was I'm good. Yeah. And Jesse Minter was like, I'm good. So it was like a lot of guys didn't want to take this job. Ultimately, I think it came down to Jim Schwartz, their defensive coordinator, and then if not him, Todd Monken. So it was like, you know, and if they were going to hire Todd Monken, they were not going to keep Jim Schwartz as their DC. So it was like, what do you do? And they go out and they get Todd Monken. George, I just feel like this is a really tough spot for Todd Monken. Like, I don't know what you do here.
I got respect for Todd Monken. I just think, like you said, it's a job that they probably got like their 5th choice, you know, unfortunately, because of kind of the situation they're in.
Yeah.
And to really address the Browns job, I think you kind of have to address outside of the head coaching job. You know, like I think that you're looking at Myles Garrett, who probably should have been traded 3 years ago. You know, you got your quarterback is Shedeur Sanders, who is just kind of a huge question mark. Jerry Jeudy had a worse year than the year before. You know, I mean, like the secondary is still pretty good, but like, and the D line, you know, Mason Graham, he played real well. And that
all the rookies played well, by the way. All the rookies
Schlesinger played really well. But yeah, it's just, you know, I mean, you're bringing in Todd Monken and you don't feel like the Giants where it's like, oh, we got a fresh culture. We're bringing in Harbaugh and it's going to literally look totally different with, you know, whether it's from the podium to the field to the booth, wherever they're going to talk about it, it's going to be totally different. Todd Monken, it's almost, and I mean, don't disrespect to him, it just kind of feels like another Browns head coach. Unfortunately, that's lost in the mix of just an organization that really cannot get it going the right way. And, you know, we talked about before where the AFC North is just so hard. And, you know, I feel like everyone's changing things up and the Browns are just kind of, I'm about the Steelers, but the Browns are just kind of like, well, we're the Browns, you know, we're making our profit, I guess. And I'd love to see some more commitment, you know? And so I don't want to go too hard on the Browns, but
It's just a tough spot, George. It's a tough spot because like it feels like you know that it's one of those things where Todd Monken, and this is no disrespect to Todd Monken, it feels like another one of those Browns coaches that'll be gone in a couple of years. Like it's like it doesn't give you any shot. He's an older guy.
If you're gonna fire, like you didn't, like to me, you didn't get better. You got rid of Stefanski.
Oh no, you got a worse coach, 100%. Yeah, 100%. And by the way, you got an older coach. So at least Stefanski's still a young guy. Todd Monken's I think he's in his 50s or maybe 60s. I don't know, but he's not like a young guy. He's not one of the younger head coaches in the league. And it doesn't feel like this is a long shelf life. Like, what do you do if Cleveland, like their best player obviously is Myles Garrett, might be the best player in the league, but he just broke the sack record. But if you're going to keep holding on to him and not going to get anything for him, the rest of the roster is like it's all dependent on your quarterback, which they haven't gotten right. And they had Baker, but other than that, they haven't gotten a quarterback right ever. So you can't trust them front office wise to do that right. And then as far as the other parts of the roster, it's just not really that good. Like, the roster's not that good in terms of like the AFC North. Yeah. The rookies were good. Don't get me wrong. Schlesinger,
that room was great.
Fannin and Judkins, and they nailed last year's draft. Don't get me wrong. That's good building blocks there. But overall,
like nailed, and then they also went quarterback. 3-4. It's like
in the mix of that. Outside of
what?
Yeah, the Mason Graham, Harold Fannin.
Yeah, the first 3 rounds were great.
Schlesinger, right? 100%. Take out the 2 quarterbacks things, and honestly, neither of them could be good. I mean, that's
okay. Well, let's clarify first. That's Pro Bowler Shedeur Sanders. That means a lot. But you're right. It just feels like they're pretty far ways away. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, Shedeur had a tough year, but he is a Pro Bowler. Maybe the 6th alternate, but he's got there.
By the way, with more picks than touchdowns.
By the way, the AFC Pro Bowlers this year was Joe Burrow, Joe Burrow's backup, and then Joe Burrow's backup.
Yeah, it was Joe and Shedeur.
Yeah, Joe Flacco, who was
Burrow.
Yeah, Burrow's backup, which was Flacco, and then Flacco's backup, which was Shedeur.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I guess I didn't think about it like that.
Flacco was on both teams. Flacco was on the Browns and the Bengals.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But the meme of them walking, it's like the AFC Pro Bowl quarterbacks. It's Burrow and Flacco wearing Bengal uniforms. It's Shedeur wearing a Browns uniform. It was hilarious. But to finish off here with the other hires, anything far as we both love the Kubiak and Minter ones. Anything that you make it Joe Brady or Jeff Hafley or Mike LaFleur?
Yeah, I like LaFleur. I think that he just kind of similarly is in such a tough spot. That division is unbelievable. And we kind of talked about it preseason. It's like, keep an eye on the Seahawks. I wasn't thinking this.
I was way off.
They were going to be the best team in football pretty comfortably, but they clearly were. And so, the Cardinals have a lot to figure out. I think that Marvin Harrison's still going to come into his own. Obviously, I think that O-line looked like it played pretty well. Brissett was really impressive when he was on the field.
The offense was good numbers, yeah.
Okay, they got a lot of questions to answer, but it's going to be tough for Mike LaFleur, mainly just for me, because they feel so comfortably like the 4th best team in that division that even if they are like 8-9, which like in the NFC South might win, they are probably in 4th place. So
easily, yeah.
So LaFleur, I think it's a good hire, but I just think that he's got an uphill battle.
That was the thing with Arizona was their defense was horrific, and that's probably why Jonathan Gannon is no longer there, because that was his side of the ball. Like the offense was put up numbers. Like
they were better with the defensive head coach on offense.
It's weird, yeah. Offensively, they actually put up some numbers with Brissett, and it looks like they're going to release Kyler because they're not going to be able to find a trade partner with Kyler. So this might be the Mike LaFleur getting whoever he wants in the draft, or maybe they're the Malik Willis team. I don't know. Obviously Mike LaFleur has ties to his brother Matt LaFleur, who had Malik Willis. So it wouldn't be shocking if Malik Willis is the Cardinals team that we get there.
Yeah,
but to me, this is a really tough spot. I mean, the Arizona roster, as far as like the other 3 teams in their division, the Cardinals roster is so far away from theirs. They have a lot of issues to fix. Defensively, they're going to need to overhaul. Offensively, you're going to figure out who the quarterback is. Is Marvin Harrison going to take that year 3 jump? Is the O-line? I mean, it's a lot of questions.
They probably need to solve the running back room still. DeMarcado and it was I can't remember his name now.
James Conner's probably going to be a cut candidate.
There was another one too. But the receivers look great. Michael Wilson really came on strong the second half of the year. He was awesome. Yeah. Marvin Harrison obviously has all the intangibles to be one of the best in the league if you can put it together. So yeah, I think that like I said, it's going to be tough. But I like the person. I like the hire. I just don't like the situation.
Similarly to Mike LaFleur, I think Jeff Hafley, who we hired, I like Jeff Hafley. I think this is going to be a really, really difficult spot for him. We are going through. We're going to have to cut Tua, unfortunately, which that means eating $99 million.
I'll ask you this. Do you think you're going to cut him this season, or do you think you hold on to him one more year so it's still a little cheaper next year?
That would be the logical thing to do, but they're not going to do that because new regime, they want to like rip the Band-Aid off.
Is there any world where you get rid of Tua and spend all the money on Malik Willis with those Packers execs coming in?
There's a world. It would be really difficult for me to see that, though. Like I really would, because if they do release Tua and they make it a post-June 1st cut, that means they'll be eating $67 million in dead cap this year, and then 34 or 32, whatever it was.
So
The
remaining almost exactly.
Yeah, the remaining 100 million of it on next year's dead cap, so 2027. Which they're going to probably do that, make it a post June 1st. Because if it's a pre June 1st, they have to eat all $99.2 million in this year's cap. And I don't think they have to be cap compliant. They have to sign the draft class. They'll have no money to do anything.
Why I think there's a world where they just are like, again, don't really like a quarterback this year. Don't know if we're going to even get Malik Willis. So it's like if they want to hold on to Tua because Tua's probably good enough to win games. He's good, like he knows the offense. It might be a different offense. He knows the personnel.
Right.
So yeah, obviously we just saw Tyreek get released.
So you're speaking my language because I've been saying this. I'm like, it wouldn't really hurt you. It's actually more expensive to cut Tua than it is to keep him. Now I think with them being the new regime that they are, getting Tua out the building, it'll just kind of accelerate things. So like if they want to do Quinn Ewers for a year and kind of tank, they can do that without having Tua kind of watching over him behind his shoulder. Even though I don't think it's that big, I don't think he's a distraction at all. It's not like he's one of those guys. It's like Cam Newton could not be a backup.
Tua's a good guy.
Yeah. Some personalities just cannot be a backup. They're too big of personalities. Tua's not that kind of personality. Like, he could be a backup quarterback. But I think what they're going to do is they're going to try to trade him if they can. But I don't think that's going to happen. No one's going to take that contract. Yeah, but I think I mean, it's just going to be a tough contract to take. But you're going to have to attach a pick to it. It's just probably not going to happen. So if they do cut Tua, who knows who the quarterback will be? Malik Willis might be out of their price range. So maybe they have to go with like just a cheap guy. Quinn Ewers. Maybe they trade for Mac Jones. I have no idea. Kirk Cousins if he's cut. Kyler Murray if he's cut. Whoever one of these guys maybe get cut.
Yeah, there'll be some open spots.
There's going to be options for sure, but it's not going to be great next year. So I think for Jeff Hafley, it's you have a bunch of picks in the top 3 rounds this year. The Dolphins do at least. I think they have 7 top 100 picks or 7 top 99 picks. So they have picks to kind of do things here. I think they have 2 seconds and 2/3, whatever it was, or maybe 3/3. So if he can bring in a bunch of defensive guys in the draft that he likes, we'll see. But next year's gonna be really tough. And then Joe Brady in that same division. It's just more expectations, I feel like, because now you're no longer having a defensive guy as an excuse for Josh Allen missing Super Bowls.
And also here come the Patriots, And
obviously great point.
It's going to be harder, but here come that's a team that's probably going to get better as we have another year or two of Drake May not under that big contract. They're still going to be able to kind of surround him. Pieces, so
by the way, I still thought that they're in the middle of a rebuild. I was like, they have 2 stars on their O line that's like not good. Like, they need to they still need to invest in this offensive line. This is still like year 2 of a rebuild to me. In my head, and they're in the Super Bowl. So it's like for Joe Brady, this is a big boy job now. You're in a division with New England, who's getting better, and you have Josh Allen as your quarterback. This is like in his prime year. So it's like big boy expectations for Joe Brady. Again, this is similar to Cleveland. I don't hate the hire. I think Joe Brady's I think he's going to be a good coach. But it's to me, I think that Sean McDermott was a good coach. Like I know he was a good.
That's exactly where. Yeah, that's exactly where I land on it. I think you nail it there. That. It's like if you were going to have Joe Brady, you could have just kept him as your OC. Like I don't know how many head coaching jobs he was getting called for, and then like you kind of saw rumors of like Phillip Rivers was getting interviewed. It's just like I don't know what's going on in Buffalo, and it's almost like it kind of feels like almost they pressed the panic button on Sean McDermott. And then you saw that press conference with the owner, and he's like, "Hey, we didn't want to draft Keon Coleman. That was like the coaching staff."
That was
and so, hey, by the way. Joe Brady was on that coaching staff. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah. So by the way, Keon Coleman's still here.
Keon Coleman's like 30 yards that way. So it's like
he's yesterday's news. Like he's in the building.
It's like so. I just to me kind of feel like the Bills like maybe panicked a little bit, especially with the Patriots. Kind of it's like wait, they made the Super Bowl. We haven't even done that yet with Josh Allen. So I don't love it because like I said, you could have had him as your OC, kept Sean McDermott. And you probably would have had a pretty good season if you just built around the guys you have and added some talent. So we'll see. But like you said, the Bills are still great. Obviously, with Josh Allen's your quarterback, you can still be great. Joe Brady can, who knows? He's got the team or the quarterback to go win a Super Bowl. But what is the team going to look like is just a big question mark.
That's the issue. I think it's more roster than it is who's that head coach. Because I still think they were capable enough with McDermott there anyways. I'm saying that they're still as capable with Joe Brady there. But to me, it's all about the GM. So it's all about the GM. Brandon Beane is still there. In fact, he almost got like a promotion. Instead of him getting fired, it was McDermott, and Brandon Beane was like, the owners were just singing Brandon Beane's praises. It's like, oh well, Brandon Beane did not want Keon Coleman, even though we have mic'd up clips of Brandon Beane be like, did you see Keon Coleman run a slow?
He's like, that's our guy, no matter what or whatever. That's our guy.
I'm getting Keon Coleman no matter what. And also, it's like, okay,
why don't we just like make Keon Coleman better? Like, why don't we say, hey, Keon Coleman's still a young kid, very talented. Why don't we just be like, hey, let's make him better instead of like.
No, there is
your wide receiver one, supposed to be wide receiver one, under the bus. It just, to me, doesn't make sense.
George, they are accepting that they whiffed. They're like, oh, yep, we whiffed. And he's in the building right now. So
it's like, then trade him,
Exactly. But my thing is with Buffalo, what does the roster look like next year? Because if it's Josh Allen and like other guys, I'm just not going to be into it. Even though they're still, I mean, their win total is 10.5 next year. So they're still one of the favorites to win the AFC. Right. It doesn't matter who the coach is, really. And it's not like a coaching doesn't matter thing. It's just more like the roster for Buffalo. Can they surround Josh Allen? Because you saw it with Mahomes this year. Mahomes had Andy Reid, and it didn't matter because the roster wasn't very good. Like, they were just not winning games. So it's like you can have an awesome coach and quarterback, but the roster around you has to be really good. I mean, so again, Harbaugh and Lamar did not even get to a Super Bowl together, and they had to go separate ways. It's like you got to, it's a tough business, but the expectations are that high. We'll take a quick break here. We'll talk about some college hoops after the break.
Let's do it.
Looking for an edge. Gets his single.